Okay, hello everyone. I'm asking that you go ahead and mute yourself if you're not already muted. Manny, if you don't mind, I need your co-host, and if you could admit people to the from the wait room, that would be great. Excellent, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, my name is Lolita Atkins. I am the program manager at the Undergraduate Research Center. And I also work with several programs at the Undergraduate Research Center as well. And I'll talk a little bit about those programs as we go on. So thank you for joining us. This is for the How to Get Involved in Research for Beginners. This is specifically STEM focus. We'll go ahead and go through the presentation. You'll also hear from a student who recently got involved in research as well, and you'll hear some tips from him as well. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. Some of you sent your questions in earlier. We'll be sure to address those questions as well. So basically, our mission at the Undergraduate Research Center is to inspire students to get involved in research. We want to empower the students. We provide a plethora of opportunities for students to get involved with faculty, to also attend presentations, etc. And basically what we're trying to do is encourage students to hone their skills and to also just have success in their career as a researcher. So currently about 50% of students are involved in undergraduate research at UC Davis. We are a Research One institution, so this is a good thing. Obviously, we'd like to increase that number, and we are doing so. By attending this presentation, that's a good sign that you're interested, and hopefully we can assist you today and answer your questions to help you get started on your journey as well. So research takes many forms, so it depends on your interest, and often we get the question like, who can conduct research? The research takes forms of a survey and interviews depending on what your major is, data analysis, lab work.
Yeah, I can connect to Zoom.
Can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you. Field work, archive work, modeling and computations. This is very common for a lot of the engineering majors. Also design projects is another form of research. So here are some projects.
I can monitor the chat at the same time. So that's one of the challenges of sharing slides.
For some reason we are getting some feedback. Anyway, but research also, this is for STEM, some of the projects that were done before. So just so you can get an idea. We also have field work as a part of research. And then we also get the question about jobs and careers in research. And just so you can see, here are some of the jobs that are available for a lot of students who do conduct research, what's after research, and we'll cover that a little bit as well. There are a lot of benefits to conducting research. Obviously, some students can earn credit for it. You build your skills, they're transferable skills, and these are extremely important, especially as an undergraduate student, especially if you're considering going to graduate school. You can take a look at the list here. A lot of students find that when they conduct research that they're more competitive when applying for jobs as well as graduate school. One of probably the most important reasons to conduct research is not just the experience, but you get to meet new people, but also you can gain a letter of recommendation. The faculty get to know you really well, so when you're applying for graduate school, it's not just a generic letter that you're going to receive. It will be someone who knows about your skills really well and can speak to that. So here's one of the things about research. 93% of employers say that You know, they're looking for candidates who can demonstrate the skills that are learned in research. So being able to think critically, communicate clearly, solve complex problems, and especially as an undergraduate student, this is huge. If you have the experience already, you know, that is just golden for most employers. They're looking for that opportunity, students who have that experience. So how can you get involved in research and basically design your research experience here at UC Davis? Well, right now it's an interesting time because we're all sheltering in place, but there are ways that you can get started and get involved in research now. We always encourage you to do your research before you actually get involved in research. So there are things that you can do while you're at home right now. So for example, attending this workshop is one of them. How to get involved in research. We also have information about how to write abstracts, presentations, etc. We have small group advising. We often have poster printing services and awards and funding. So right now, students are attending conferences online. Well, there's actually funding that you can apply for, especially if you are involved in research. Sometimes they will have travel awards that they offer, and we encourage students to do that. I know there was a huge conference, the SACMAS conference, that was asking students to register and apply for these travel awards. It covered their registration fees. So now is a really good time while you're at home and you may have additional time to check some of these opportunities out and take advantage of them. The Undergraduate Research Center will also cover these expenses right now. You can apply for a travel award. So basically you would pay the registration fee and then get reimbursed for it if you are presenting in that particular conference. So here are some of the myths that we often hear from the students. A lot of questions. Only STEM majors can do research. That is not the case, but we are going to focus on STEM. Research only happens in a lab. I can't get a position if I don't already have the experience. Well, that certainly is not true. As a matter of fact, most faculty know that students are here without the experience, and they want to be able to assist and help provide that experience for you. So going on, and you can read some of these questions. I don't want to go to grad school, so research really isn't for me. Again, we talked about how 93% of most employers are looking for students who have the skills that are gained by conducting research. So that's very important to keep in mind. And the only reason to do research is to get a good letter of recommendation. That is important, but that is not the only reason. And you'll hear from one of our students, Manny, later on, who will share information about the skills that he's gaining as an undergraduate researcher. Okay. So these myths are dusted, and we'll go a little bit over how to get started. So one of the things that you want to do is you really want to consider what your interests are. So depending on your major. The other thing I wanted to mention is you do not have to conduct research in your major. You can combine your interests. So if you are a STEM major, let's say you're engineering, and you just happen to be a really good artist, or you enjoy music or whatever, you can consider combining those interests and conducting research in that way. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to get started on that. You can also take self-assessments. You can look at the conference abstract books. So if you go online to our website, Undergraduate Research Center, if you just do a search or go to urc.ucdavis.edu and type in abstracts, there is just tons of information of students who have conducted research and presented in our conference. And they have a little blurb, a little abstract about what they did, the type of research they conducted. So I recommend you check that out as well. You can ask questions of pretty much anyone. So faculty, the TAs, students who you know who are currently conducting research. as well. You can interview people, you can read articles. Also, now is a really good time to update your CV and resume, and I'll explain that later, because when you contact faculty, you're going to want to provide that information to them. You can also visit the Internship and Career Center. There's a lot of information. There's also workshops that you can get involved in to strengthen and hone your skills. So again, you want to consider what interests you most, whatever you get excited about. I also say if there's a class that you're taking and you did extremely well in that class and you just love the subject, that might be something you want to consider as well. And especially the faculty person might be the person to consider. You know, maybe you want to reach out to them and find out a little bit more about them, the faculty member, and their work. I would encourage that as well. So where you want to work is also, it can be a consideration too, but right now you're just sort of getting your feet wet. Try to figure out what it is that you want to do and have a research experience. If you're a first-year student, now's a good time to explore. A second-year student, same thing. If you're a third or fourth-year student, you can get involved in research at any time. I always say, please plan to have at least a full year experience, because by the time you get acclimated to what the project is and everything else, it takes about a year to be able to conduct the research and get results as well. So a full year is kind of what you should plan for when conducting research. Another thing that you could do, and if you have not heard of Jove videos, I would encourage you to do that. You can watch these videos anytime. Just go to this website, www.jove.com, and you can type in the subject that you're interested in, and there will be so many videos that come up. And it's really interesting how they define their research and how they show it. And I have to warn you, it's like going down a rabbit hole, because they're so fascinating. You'll click on one and then the next and the next and the next. So you can easily binge watch these videos. But it's a good way to sort of get an idea as to the type of research that is conducted and what you might want to do in the future. So informational interviews are always really good. So right now, faculty are also sheltering in place, but they're more than happy to chat with you, so are the TAs. So what I would encourage you to do is go to the faculty website or the department and look under the tab of faculty, and you can click on each faculty member. They have information. They have their CV, which basically is an academic resume, and they list all of their publications, their articles, etc. So you can get an idea of the type of research that they're involved in, and you can see if that might be a good fit for you. So in essence, you're looking up all of this information in advance before you contact the professor. So that's always a good thing to do. And then also think about the skills that you want to learn for your position. While you're conducting these informational interviews, these are the questions that you will ask. You can invite, actually you can see if a faculty member, a graduate student, a TA is available to meet with you in person, or just if you wanted to exchange information via email, that's also good as well. You can come up with the questions on the spot or have them sent over in advance. But really, you're just trying to gain information. So to contact faculty, there's some information. It says before or after class. Well, right now, email is the best way to contact faculty. And you want to make sure that you are very appropriate with your email. So you want to make sure it's very professional, that you have really good information about the type of research they're doing. So the reason why it's important to sort of look at their background and and all of that is because when you contact them, you want to make sure that their work is pretty much current. You don't want to be talking about some research that they did maybe 10, 15 years ago that they're no longer involved in. You want to make sure that it's up to date. So they see you as someone who has done your homework and research on them. I also say it's a good idea to read their articles, because when you contact them in that email, you can throw in that information. You can say, I read your article, your publication on X, Y, and Z, and I was really intrigued and I'd like to learn more about that, or it aligns with my interests and I'd like to meet with you and discuss them further. So that's always a good idea. And then you always, of course, want to follow up. We'll go in more depth about contacting faculty and what the letter should consist of. So here's an anatomy of a good email. You always want to identify yourself, obviously who you are, include your class level, your major, what you're interested in specifically. So again, you don't want to just send a generic email saying, hi, I'm wondering if you have a lab position. I'm interested in doing research. Short and sweet, but it doesn't really say anything. It doesn't say much, but faculty get emails like that a lot. Just short, blunt emails. Some of them don't even say who they are, what their major is, etc. So you want to make sure that you're very specific in your email. You want to let them know why you're interested in the particular research area. And always indicate your availability, because what that then does is it almost puts the responsibility on them to respond to you, because you said, I'm available to meet with you during these times. So then faculty hopefully feel like they need to connect with you right away and get back to you. You can also let them know what your skills are. So you definitely want to include a resume. So make sure you say, I've attached my resume here for your viewing. Let them know, again, your availability and that you look forward to hearing from them. So this is something to think about. Go ahead and take a look at this email. And this is an actual email that was received from one of the students. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are about that. I mean, faculty get this all the time. So more than likely, they may not respond to this email or not take the students seriously. So you have to consider that. So when you're contacting the faculty, you want to make sure that you're also using their the professor's name. The proper title is really important as well. You also want to make sure that you're paying attention to the spelling, because typos indicate a lot of things for a lot of professors. So you want to make sure that you bring your A game. So that begins with your introduction, which will be your email. So you want to be specific. I'm looking forward to hear instead of hearing from you. But they didn't mention anything about their research. There's no evidence provided saying that anything about their research, or that they've done some background work as well. Here's another email. Things to consider. So if you can, also research the lab that the faculty member is in. A lot of faculty have their own labs, so you want to include that name, the name of the lab in the email. So make sure that you're paying attention to detail, because even in a letter, something that seems so small, like a letter, that also to the faculty member will indicate how well and prepared you'll be to be able to pay attention to the details in the lab when it does really matter, especially if you're not, you know, let's say you're mixing chemicals and you're not paying attention to the which chemicals you're mixing. It could be disastrous. So paying attention to the detail is really important. So here's an example of a good email. I won't read the whole thing to you. You are welcome to take a picture of this. I always say that, you know, when things are growing really quickly, an easy way to do this is take a screenshot or a photo of this email. But you just want to make sure that you're very thorough and that you include all of the right information. So again, stressing your CV or resume is really a great idea. Here is an example of another really good email. Again, feel free to take a picture of this information. So this student is very specific. They're saying how many hours they're able to work each week. And just so you know, during the summer, it's a little different because most students have more time in the summer, so they can devote more hours. But during the academic year, it's always a good idea to stick to about 10 to 12 hours of research. So what I would encourage you all to do is to make a list of the possibilities based on your interest. Look at conference abstracts, read the websites, different articles, papers, etc. Talk to TAs, grad students, even your peers, fellow students who have been involved in research as well. And then contact the professor directly. Students have also done the following. They've asked to attend a research group meeting. Informational interviews we mentioned. There's seminars that you can also attend, which is a really good idea. You also want to attend virtual conferences if you are able. Watch webinars. We talked about Jove as well. There's also online lab safety training that you can complete, and I think if you have completed that and you can let the professor know, obviously within your particular field or area, so in your letter you can include, I've already completed lab safety training. That's a bonus for a lot of faculty as well. So again, you can check out our website for more information and resources. There's a lot of really good information, so I would encourage you to definitely check that out if you have not already. So, and here is the link for the safety training. So again, you could take a photo of this if you'd like, or a screenshot, or you can also just do a search at the UC Davis website, on the website, and it will. So other things that you can do, we talked about your classes and going to the departmental websites. Sometimes you can find positions available on Handshake. There's also a STEM portal, and again, we mentioned our website. In the STEM portal, you can do a search for information, and if it is available, it will come up. So we talked about all of this. The Internship and Career Center is an excellent resource. Etc. So you also want to prepare for the interview. So let's say a faculty member says, I would love the opportunity to meet with you. Let's schedule an interview. Or if they say they want to meet with you, that is code for they want to interview you. So you should definitely be prepared regardless. You want to do your homework again, make sure that you're aware of what their lab consists of. And the type of research that they're doing. You also want to practice. So maybe do a mock interview with your friends or family. And then of course you want to relax and, you know, just be yourself is what I would encourage you to do. Because again, it's an interview. And one of the things that I would also say is you're interviewing the faculty member as well. Because sometimes it's a good fit and sometimes it's not. So you want to make sure that you're able to connect well. So I'm going to take a pause really quickly, and I see we have information in our chat room. So let me just fill that up really quickly.
Lolita, the biggest thing in the chat was the concern about if the recording or the slides are going to be available to the people.
Yes, it will be. And I can make both the recording and the slides available to you. As a matter of fact, it will go on our website, and we'll send this information out. So most definitely, especially for those of you who joined us late. Okay, thank you for that, Manny. So when is the best time to conduct research? There were some questions that we'll go over later. Whenever you're ready is really the best time. So we have some students coming in as first-year students who have already had research experience, or they're ready to begin their process. And that's perfectly fine. We have some other students who, their first year, they want to just try it out. The quarter system goes by really quickly. So they want to make sure that, you know, they have time to be able to devote to conducting research. So that's also very wise to do. But again, we talked about making sure that you conduct about anywhere from, here it says 6 to 10 hours a week. Really, the typical hour is more like 10 to 12 is what students have reported. So for the academic year, it's almost like having a part-time job. It really is. So you want to make sure that you're able to balance that and fit that in as well. You should also be in good standing. So first and foremost is you're here to graduate. So you want to make sure that there's not going to be anything that's going to pull you off of your path and your goal of graduating. So those are all things that you can check out. Also, there's first year experience CURES classes that you can also consider. This is specifically research focused, and it's always a good idea to start there too. They can help you decide kind of what it is that you're interested in by attending these courses. We also have sponsored research programs. You've probably heard of some of these programs. I'm the program manager for CAMP and MERPS, and there's another one called IIFH, Innovation Institute for Food and Health. And then there's also the McNair Scholars Program and UC Leads. The goal for all of these programs are pretty specific, is to help recruit and retain students from underserved communities and help them facilitate success and transition to graduate study. So you can check that out. There's information on our website about these programs as well. So none of this matters right now, but you should know where we're located. If you don't already, we're at the Student Community Center, and our hours of operation are typically from 9 to 5. And right now we're sheltering in place, so email at urc@ucdavis.edu is the best place and to contact us. So where do we go from here? Here's some do's and don'ts. You know, keep an open mind, because if you don't hear back from faculty, they are very busy as well. I always say, if you don't hear back, follow up. That's very important. I would probably let a week go by and send a follow-up email. And the reason why this is important is it shows that you're not just going to sit back and let things happen to you. You make things happen. So they're looking for the proactive student, someone who is curious, someone who is even persistent, not to the point of being pesky, but just persistent. And sometimes, and I will share this with you, I have heard from some faculty that said they never respond to the first email on purpose. And the reason being is they're looking for that tenacious student, that student who is, they know is going to follow through. So to encourage you, if you don't hear back, wait about a week and send a follow-up email. Just nicely saying, I'm just checking back around to let you know that I'm extremely interested in meeting with you, etc., and go from there. You can read the rest of the list, but again, you want to network as well. So You know, talk to other students and people who have had these positions. Sometimes you could just keep your ear open, find out if there are professors who are looking for students to work in their lab. But again, you want to make sure that you're comfortable. But I also encourage you to push yourself a bit. So during the summer, challenge yourself. Say, okay, I'm going to contact at least 3 to 5 faculty and see what happens, right? Again, now is a really good time because, you know, faculty may already have students lined up and we're home, but there are things that you could still do while you're at home. You know, so they may be planning for the next academic year. So again, it's never too late. It's always a good time to contact faculty. Things you don't want to do is expect your first internship, job, or research position to be perfect. You know, I mean, you're learning information, and every experience is a learning experience. So keep that in mind. You also want to just try to stay encouraged, especially during this time. You'll hear from Manny, and hopefully he'll be able to give you some more information. So right now, I'll turn it over to Manny. You have the floor.
Hey everyone, thanks Lolita, and happy to be here and happy to share my story with you guys. First of all, can everybody hear me okay? Good? All right.
Yep.
If you have any questions throughout when I'm talking, just feel free to put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Okay, so for me, my story, a little bit of background about myself. So my name is Emmanuel Lanuza. I'm a senior. Starting my senior year at UC Davis. I'm a transfer student and I'm a chemistry major. Before this, I was at a Santa Rosa Junior College. That's where I transferred from. And at that point, I had no experience of any research or anything like that. So, you know, when I came to UC Davis, like my first exposure to like research was at orientation and through classmates. So at orientation, I met a faculty member, Dr. Franz, which I've got to know a lot more. But I met her there at orientation and she talked to me a little bit about research. And I kind of didn't really know what it was, and I was working at the time. So like you already have like undergraduate work. So you're really like, I already have enough on my plate. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do research or if I even have the time. And then I kind of thought that I would take the first quarter, was my first quarter of something like brand new. So I thought I would take my first quarter and just kind of see what UC Davis is like. Then my classmates were talking to me my classmates from a community college, they were talking to me about their experience at UC Davis and how they were doing research and how I should really get involved in research at UC Davis if I was interested in research. So I said, why? And they said like, UC Davis is a great school for research. There's so many labs and so many opportunities. So starting my winter quarter, I think one thing that kind of helped me out was I found a class that I really liked. So I took I didn't even have to take it. It was a graduate level class and I took it. And it was about chemistry, and Dr. Franz, which I had met earlier that year, she was the professor, and one of my classmates was like, well, you know, she's kind of in charge of undergraduate research. You should talk to her. So I was kind of nervous or shy, but I kind of went up to her, I talked to her, and she said, she was really busy. I can tell she's really busy. And she said, you should check out the URC and look up some programs. So that's where I met Lolita, and she actually gave me a presentation similar to this. And it really started painting what like opportunities or what research can do for me. So that was my first kind of, you know, as like I was getting more curious. And then the lockdown, the coronavirus happened. So like everything just kind of went like, you know, you just hit a wall. Like here I am trying to find and get involved in research, and it felt like all my doors closed, and I was like, really, like, I don't think I'm gonna do this anymore. And then I still maintained contact with Dr. Franz, and I was like, hey, I want to get involved, but it's just a really hard time. And she said, I'm teaching a first year seminar on the spring and you should take it. And I didn't know much about it, but it was kind of a program driven or kind of focused on research by MERPs. And everyone was kind of already like had some research, and it was stopped because of coronavirus. So I got to hear everybody talk about their research, but I didn't have any, so it just felt a little weird. And but I got to learn like how broad like the research can be. There was people, you know, studying everything, not just like, you know, chemistry, but like robotics and environment. And I got to see them kind of like the work that they were doing and the amount of time it may take. So then the perspective got a little bit more clear. So I was a little bit more knowledgeable. And then Dr. Franz, she said, you can sit in on our group meetings if you want. So I went to the group meetings as well. And those were really intimidating for me because I didn't know anything. And to kind of backtrack a little bit, I did look up some professors and try to read some of their publications. And those papers are like, I love chemistry and I'm reading papers on chemistry and they're really not, like they're really unapproachable. Technical terms and stuff like that. So I was really kind of put off by that. And but going to the meetings and going to the first year seminar really helped me like kind of understand it a little more, how it's not so unapproachable. And then it kind of, so that was this year. And then this summer, as I was being involved with MERPs and going to the group meetings, Dr. Franz told me that there was a project that she thought I might like. She talked to me about the project. So at this point, I already established a relationship and I'm able to kind of talk about my interest. And then, you know, my mentor can say, hey, this is probably a good fit for you, or you know, like you should look at this or that. So I think that was a really big help for me during the summer, like going to those groups and finally getting like a project and figuring out what it is that I can study. Because then you just focus on like getting better at reading the literature, and the literature is so important. And now I feel like I'm starting to be knowledgeable in one area of research, and it's pretty cool. Along that, all this summer, like I've been taking advantage, like the more people you meet, the more opportunity for like different workshops and stuff online. And then like networking during this time is kind of difficult, you know? But if you start taking advantage of the opportunities and start learning about them, it's really cool, because I've been going to workshops and meeting people and hearing people's stories. And I found that hearing people's stories is really motivating, because then like I realized that, you know, there's not one time or a specific time when you should start research, and it's never too late to get involved, and as long as, you know, you're motivated and curious. So because before I thought like, you know, you should always have straight A's, or, you know, always, you know, like be a star student, but it's not really like that. So you just have to be curious. And I guess if I had to like say the biggest things or the biggest advice that helped me was kind of the things like that was mentioned in the presentation, which was don't get discouraged. So like there's always, once you kind of start building community and networking, like there's so much opportunities. What else? Always ask questions. At first it's kind of weird, like, but the more questions you ask, the more you learn, and the more people will know that you're interested. I think that was like, that's been the biggest change for me this year, and it's all been because of programs like this, and talking to people like this, and like you guys that coming to workshops like this. And I think they have made a big impact, especially during this time, which is very difficult. So take advantage of everything you can while you're while you're here, you know, while the resources are here for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Was there anything else, Manny, you wanted to say? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, and then we'll have questions at the end too, so you're welcome to ask questions directly of Manny at the end. So as Maya mentioned, you know, you can find information about our programs. All of that information is online, urc.ucdavis.edu. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And I wanted to address some of your questions that were sent in earlier. And they are here. How much time will students spend? We did cover that. About 10 to 12 hours per week is what should be done on average. Now, I've heard reports of students spending way more time than that. So again, you want to make sure that you're able to balance your time. How easy is it for freshmen to get involved in research? We've had plenty of freshmen getting involved in research. And it depends on a lot of different factors. How motivated are you? Take advantage of this time right now. I cannot stress that enough because you have more time, hopefully, to be able to be online and to, you know, research faculty and different interests and positions. I would take advantage of that and write a letter. And, you know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time with that letter. You could just change it to fit each faculty. And you want to personalize it a little bit, but you don't have to start from scratch with each letter. How easy is it? If you show motivation and determination and you're persistent, hopefully you will get a response and a positive response. We have, again, some students who come into UC Davis and, you know, basically gotten a position before they actually set foot onto campus. So it is very possible. But again, you have to do your homework. You have to put in the work. But again, I do want to stress that during this time also, we're sheltering in place, so be flexible and, you know, understand that there might not be anything available. And I'm hearing that a lot because you're not able to be on campus to conduct the research. So it's a good time to prepare. And in your letter, you might want to state that. You might want to say, you know, when we return to campus, I would really love the opportunity, you know, and what are some of the things that I can do now, or I'm willing to, you know, work online and do X, Y, and Z. And this is where the lab safety training and all of that other really good information comes in handy. Can I conduct research on my own research, and how much support will I receive when conducting these studies or gathering any necessary information like lab work? So we have had a lot of students conduct research on their own, basically. So when you're doing your, let's say, senior design project or your honors theses, we've had students basically conduct their own research. It can be done. Often students will start out, however, doing the research of the faculty who is in the lab. So that's very common. And then sometimes students will get promoted. So based on, you know, their drive and, you know, how successful they are and how motivated they are, they may be promoted, etc. And so I want to encourage you, if you're interested in pursuing your own research, first of all, try to get that position first, and then talk with a faculty member to let them know what your interests are. Faculty are more than happy and willing to assist you in whatever ways possible. So, you know, don't let that be a deterrent because you're brand new or whatever. First, try to get your foot in the door, get that position. But as you're talking to them one-on-one in your interview, let them know what you're interested in too, so it's very clear. Does research count as an internship? It can be viewed as that. It depends. For STEM majors, research is generally known as research. Internships, it's a little bit different. Students can be paid for research positions as well as internship positions. But interning is more, you'll find that more in non-STEM majors. but there are internships that are available as well. For research, you'll see specifically they'll say looking for a student researcher or a fellow as well will also be included as one of those terms. But they could pretty much be, it could be used interchangeably. So do you need an internship in order to get research? Yeah, so that was one of the questions in the chat too. They wanted to know, well, how do you obtain these skills, etc. Faculty are not expecting you to come knowing everything. I mean, that's part of the whole experience. So you're learning on the job. And that's very typical. You do not have to have any prior research experience or anything like that. You just have to express interest, etc. And again, you know, if you don't get the first opportunity, try for the next one and the next one and the next one, and eventually, hopefully you'll land something. And as Manny mentioned too, check out these programs because the programs are really helpful. You do not have to belong to a program to start research. And again, now's the perfect time for you to start looking for those positions. Are there a lot of STEM research jobs available? What are the benefits of having a versus a regular job? Yeah, I have some students who have recently graduated and they are junior specialists. So the wonderful thing about this is they're gaining more experience in the field that they're interested in. And they're helping to make advances in their work. So regardless of what the research is, they're making advances, they're contributing to society, which is very rewarding. So there are a lot of different jobs available. I will include this information. Actually, there is a website I will send to you all. And it's a great resource where you can type in your specific major and look up all of the different jobs that are available within that major. So I'll make sure to include that with the information that goes out to you. Okay, so does current GPA or low experience affect faculty's choice? That is a really good question. And I would say yes and no. But I also want to turn that around and ask yourself, if you were an employer and you were seeking a student to work for you, what are some of the things that you would consider? Would you look at those type of things? Not necessarily the low experience, but the GPA. It's not always the best indicator for how you perform and how you will do, but it is sometimes a good indicator. So you want to be mindful of that as well. So if your GPA is suffering so much, your focus may not need to be on research. It may need to be on your academics. So that's one thing to consider. You know, your resume will include your skills, and that outweighs a lot of times all the other information. And a lot of the research programs also, they're admitting students, I think, who have at least a 2.7 GPA or higher. So that's kind of a baseline that you can think about when considering research. We did talk about the research or internships a bit. As research positions, are they volunteer work or are they paid? They could be both. Most of them, however, are volunteer positions because you're gaining the experience. So you're still learning a lot while not getting paid. Some of the programs that we mentioned do offer what's considered a research stipend. These are often programs that are for underserved students who may not have had the experience, etc., and they may have a financial need as well as part of that. So therefore, they will receive a stipend, so they do not have to compete with also having to work and attend school, etc. So where can you find research involving animals? Well, I would recommend that you go to the animal science department or the vet department and look. You can also do a Google search on the UC Davis website. And sometimes faculty will send us information too. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to go and sign up on our listserv, urc.ucdavis.edu. Go to the website, get onto our listserv, because when we get positions that are available, faculty will send us information. We send that out on our listserv. So that's one way you can find out about different opportunities. But again, you're going to do the research. Go directly to the website. Go directly to, look up the information, faculty, and reach out to them, because sometimes they may not have had time to advertise a position, and just by reaching out to be the right place, the right time, etc., you can establish a connection. So what specific skills do you need? What type of experience, etc.? We talked about all of that. Your resume really details whether or not you are someone who can, first of all, get a job, and second of all, stay with the job, right? It doesn't matter what type of job it is. It could be a job in retail. It could be a job in fast food industry. It doesn't matter. What they're looking at is, first of all, you're able to get a job, you're able to maintain that job, and sometimes we can see progress on your resume as well. So you moved up to shift manager, etc. So they're looking for skills like that. It doesn't matter, because these skills are easily transferable into the lab as well, right? So that's one thing to consider. Again, don't focus on the fact that you don't have research experience. And some of you do, when you think about it. Maybe there was a class in high school or at your other college where you conducted research. Include that. That's important as well. So don't ever discount that. Don't think that it doesn't count because it's not as a part of UC Davis. It's still experience, so you want to make sure to note that. Okay. So that is pretty much it. Right now, I will take other questions that you may have. Feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask questions. Thank you. You can ask questions of either me or Manny as well. So ask away.
Hello. So I'm an incoming undergraduate student, and I don't really have much experience working. I'm an immigrant here, but I can't legally work yet because I'm here on an H-4 visa. So I have no work experience. I just have some, AP high school coursework and programming knowledge. What would I have in my resume? Like, I asked the question earlier because right now, in terms of marketable skills, I have very limited number of them. I know R, a programming language or two.
Put that on your resume, definitely. That's awesome. Those are the types of things. So even though you may not have the full work experience, I didn't mean to cut you off, I'll let you finish, but these are things I don't want you to discount. That's really important. The fact that you're reaching out. You can take classes online. That shows your commitment and that you're trying to build your resume, right? So the R of the coding is perfect. I don't know if you worked in high school at all, or even if you volunteered. So it doesn't just have to be work experience. Maybe you served as president, and it doesn't have to be president. Maybe you were a member of a particular club or organization. You could put that on there because that shows commitment, right? Anything that you're doing that's above and beyond than, just breathing air, pretty much, is also experience, right?
Okay, so I guess for now I should just put the foundations of experience in my resume.
Right. Kareem, you are building your resume, and you're doing it now as an undergraduate student, which is the perfect time. And you can't fail. You can't fail. So any skills that you're gaining, even online right now, by taking these courses, the training, safety training, etc., watching these Joe videos, it will spark interest and ideas that you can use. So think about that. It's also networking, right? Because it may take you elsewhere, right? So each opportunity will lead you down a different pathway, which will help you gain experience overall. And these are all things you can include on your resume.
All right. And could I include something like I've audited a few courses on edX and at UC Davis before? I live in Davis, right? And I went to high school here after moving to the United States. But I didn't officially enroll in a class. I just audited them. Is there a way for me to indicate my experience with any type of proof? Like, can I link my Canvas page and show that I'm a spectator in the class?
I would. I would definitely. And one other thing I want to say to all of you now is if you do not have a LinkedIn account, now's a really good time to create one because you're sort of establishing yourself as an undergraduate student, but also hopefully a researcher. So what you will put on that will be important. So I would say Google first, really good LinkedIn accounts for undergraduate students involved in research or whatever. And then there'll be some top ones that come up and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just if you like their format and their style and some of the things that they're indicating and it mirrors or matches a lot of what you do, you can include that type of information on your LinkedIn account as well. So basically you're putting your resume up for everyone to see, but you're starting that whole journey about, you know, this is who I am as an undergraduate student and as a potential researcher, right? So just a tip, now's a good time, again, while we're in the summer, right? So take advantage of this time because things will speed up a bit once school gets started in the fall. So, okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Other questions? I'm going to go to the chat room if not. And
I'm sorry, I think you talked about this earlier, but where would we go to learn to make a resume?
the Internship and Career Center. So
Right, okay.
ICC, yeah, they're fantastic. They have a lot of really good information, also online. And here's what I always tell everyone. First of all, YouTube is fabulous because you can find almost anything on YouTube. But you can also Google a really good template for a resume. And just take that template and then throw your information onto it. Again, you don't have to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of templates out there that are going to be really helpful to you. And the Internship and Career Center can definitely help you get started. Okay. Other questions?
Lolita?
Yes.
I think earlier you mentioned that GPA might be an important factor in deciding.
I don't want to say that overall, but you know, let me go ahead and ask your question. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know if when we reach out to our to the researcher, whether we should include that in our email or not.
Well, some people do actually include their GPA on their resume, especially if it's particularly impressive. So, you know, I mean, we've had some students with, I'm not saying you have to have a 4.0 GPA in science and engineering or whatever, but if it's noteworthy, you can include it on your resume. Is it necessary? No. Again, the faculty person is going to be looking overall at, you know, do you demonstrate commitment through the work that you've had, your volunteer positions, the organizations that you're involved in, etc. But you don't have to point it out, especially if you have an average GPA. Most of the students conducting research, a lot of them have a pretty average GPA, and that's okay. Faculty are not expecting, you know, the top scholars to be in their lab, you know, because it's just the way it is. And so I wouldn't let that deter you, especially if your GPA is, you know, considered average. That is very common. And again, most of the programs, they're looking at a GPA of a 2.7 or higher. If it's below that, particularly closer to 2.0, I would say I would focus on my academics more so than anything else, trying to get that up as well. So did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, and is it Shravia?
Shravia.
Shravia, oh, that's a beautiful name.
I just had a quick question. You said there was a tool we could enter our major in and there would be like a bunch of programs that would come up. What was the name of that?
So let me see, actually, maybe somebody sent that to me. Yes, awesome. I will put it in the chat room so you will have it. Oh, actually, even better. I'm going to send you over to the Washington program at UC Davis because they have it's called Internships by Major, right? And it shows internships specifically by major, but there's also a resource where you can find out what those careers are. I will also send this information to everyone to specific website is a great tool. And I want to make sure that you all have access to that as well. Okay.
I just had one more question. If our major is a little like interdisciplinary or it's not fully STEM, but it's not like fully social sciences, like should we just like attend both or, cause I was a little confused.
Well, it's not necessary because a lot of the information you'll get in the other one is pretty much the same here. The only thing we talk about is the type of research that you can do. You can find that information online when you're researching the faculty, right? Just by looking at what type of research they're involved in, you can sort of get an idea as to the type of research you will be doing if you're working with that particular professor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't need to attend another. You don't have to sit for another one. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Other questions before we go on to the chat?
Can I ask Emmanuel a question?
A what?
Yeah, Emmanuel, could I ask you a question? So as a transfer student, did you find it harder to find research?
Yeah, it's a good question. I found it, I think like I kind of build my own barriers for myself because I'm like, I see a lot of like first year, second year that are already like involved in the school. Just having that experience of being around the school, like I felt kind of intimidated. But in reality, it's not harder because like, you know, there's like all the resources, like a lot of people, you know, like even if they're freshmen or sophomores, they might not even be looking for a research position. So like usually as a transfer student, like you're a little, like you're a little more, in some cases, maybe you could be a little more motivated or a little more goal oriented. So it kind of, in a way, it could make you a better candidate if you present it that way. But the opportunities are there, you know, like, especially like, you know, going to a workshop like this, you get a lot of resources. So not harder. And especially like during this time, it's really cool that you can go to like a lab group meeting and on Zoom and like, you know, you could do it from home and you can kind of get your, you know, like your feet wet like that.
So there was a question in the chat room as to should we email professors now? Yes, now is a good time to reach out to faculty and, you know, let them know when you're available and just show your interest. Now is the perfect time because hopefully, you know, I mean, they're online. They're online too. So hopefully they'll get your email and respond back. Okay. Other questions? I want to make sure I'm kind of looking at the chat room.
I had a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Can our letter of recommendation come from a TA since like I don't know any professors? Is that all right if a TA writes it?
Most definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, anyone who can speak to your abilities would be a good person to write in. And again, they're not expecting you to have that experience directly from the faculty member, so that's perfectly fine. Especially for the transfer students coming in, you know, you want someone who knows you well, who can speak to your experience and your commitment as a student and etc. So, there was a question also. Is it possible to get a lab and field position during quarantine? A transfer student, like this person's a transfer student and is concerned about the lockdown. We did go over that a little bit. Faculty are not, the students aren't in lab right now. So During this time, the things that you can do, most of that will be online, and we encourage you to do as much research behind the scenes as possible. And I'm not sure, Abigail, if you heard the earlier part of the presentation, but you're welcome to contact the URC and ask more questions. I'd be happy to connect with you and offer some more information regarding that. But yeah, I mean, right now, the campus does not have a lot of students unless it's specifically COVID-19 related. Students are not in lab. So right now, just do what you can from home. How difficult is it participating in research? I would probably say that the most difficult part is trying not to overcommit yourself. Students love research so much once they get involved in it that they tend to commit a lot of their time and energy. So you want to make sure that you have a balance. Yeah, so make sure that you have a balance, that you don't overcommit. It's generally not difficult if you're in the lab, because there will be instruction and information that's taking place, and it's the type of work that you like to do or hopefully are interested in doing. So you're learning. So that part should not be difficult at all. Participating from home can be a challenge, especially if you don't know where to begin. But again, if a professor says yes to you, they will also provide information like where to get started. They may have you reading articles and information about the particular research. So that's something you can easily do. And a lot of students do take part in that. Okay.
Lolita, if I can add to that,
Yeah.
like sometimes like when you're talking about research and getting into it, it's good to like communicate to the professor like, hey, like maybe I'm busy or maybe I'm not sure, and like you can commit as much time as you guys can agree on a time to commit to, so you can both have realistic expectations, something like that.
Okay, so then there was a couple of the questions. How can you find out? Okay, so how can you find out what research faculty are currently doing if we can't find it on their website? So you can email them. You can email them and say, just let them know, I'm really curious. I would like to know more information about the type of research you're involved in. I was not able to find it on your website. Can you provide me a link to your CV? First of all, you don't have to look on the UC Davis website. You can just Google any faculty member. If they have information about their publications, articles, that information will come up. So you could just do a general Google search on them. And that's generally a good thing to do in addition to, searching for their information on the UC Davis website. So are there any other opportunities or events that are similar to this one that provide information on research or other researchers offered at UC Davis? Oh, Liam, that's a really good question. Most of the okay, so I have to put a plug in for this, and I should have included a slide. We will have something called Undergraduate Research Week that is taking place the second week in October. So I want to encourage you to just keep checking back on our website. We will have more details about this, but what that is we have opportunities that are taking place on campus all over, where we basically combine all of that information in one place during one particular week. So there'll be this whole list of different research opportunities, information, webinars, seminars, workshops, etc. going on. And you could basically get the link and find out more information about that particular event. That's called Undergraduate Research Week. It's something that we do every year, and that's a good way for a lot of students to sort of get their feet wet and sort of see what different people are doing on campus. So again, just keep checking in on our website, and we'll have that information posted hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Again, it does not take place until October. But that's a good place for you to get information. Is there a place where you can sign up to receive emails? Yes. So if you go to, you want to receive emails from the Undergraduate Research Center, you could go to the urc.ucdavis.edu, and the information for students, on the left side, there's a place where you can sign up on the listserv to receive information. And I highly recommend you do that, because we've seen some phenomenal opportunities come by, and we send them right out to our students. Sometimes they're paid internships, sometimes there's paid research positions, sometimes it's participating in other seminars and workshops outside of UC Davis. So we've collaborated with UC Berkeley, UC Santa Barbara, etc. So you don't have to be just confined to UC Davis, especially during this time, because it's virtual, right? You can take advantage of other opportunities as well. So definitely everyone today should sign up on our listserv if you're not already. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Because we just passed one.
Hey there, I do kind of have a question. We could do Anton's actually. I just saw it come up in the chat.
Oh. Okay. All right, so how does research work? So we did cover this a bit. How does it work when you're participating from home? So obviously you can't be in the lab, but there are a lot of things that you can do. And part of that is, I think on my screen I had mentioned the Jove videos, jove.com, right? It's a great place just to sort of get information about the type of research, specifically for STEM. But you can also read articles, journals, different information. Go to, there's a lab safety training. This information will also be available. We're recording this presentation, but also we'll have the slides available so you can go back and look at that information that offers suggestions and ideas of things that you can do while you're at home. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Incoming first year student. So what will faculty be looking at in your resume? If you have any type of volunteer experience, you can include that. If you have work experience that you did in high school or junior high, at your church or wherever, you can include all of that on your resume. Faculty aren't expecting you to have just this long history of work experience because you're an undergraduate student. So they're not expecting you to come with all the skills, knowledge, and abilities. That's just not, it's not a thing. So you'll gain a lot of that information while you're working and while you're doing research. So what they want to see is that commitment. First of all, that you know how to put a resume together. That's a big piece of it too. Like, do you even know how to put a resume together and convey who you are on paper? So that's a huge piece of it. Again, I want to point you to the Internship and Career Center, because even if you don't have a lot of experience, they can help you craft a really good resume.
Lolita?
Yes. Thank you, German, for adding to that projects and coursework also help, especially for STEM majors. That's very true. Should we only contact professors that we know from class, or is it, oh no, you can make cold calls? So earlier I talked about you doing the research and finding the faculty and based off of your interests. So if it's a particular major, go to that particular, or let's say it's chemistry, right? You can go to the chemistry website, look under faculty, and then just start reading. Just start reading their CV. They all have their academic resume up there. It talks about what they've done in the past, their research, the articles that they've published, etc. And you'll get a good feel as to whether or not that's something that you might also be interested in. But definitely starting with faculty that you know from class is also a really good idea, especially if you did particularly well and they remember you. I always, one of the things I do want to say is go to office hours, period. And even if that's virtual, go to office hours so they get to know who you are. So you're not just a number in class. there's a name associated with that face. They get to know you. So when you reach out to them, they'll also want to respond right away because they know who you are. What kind of research is possible during lockdown? We did talk about that a little bit, and it will vary. It will vary depending on the type of research that you are applying for. So faculty, they all conduct their labs and differently, right? So they may have you working on a specific project. It could be a group project. They may have you attending meetings, different things, but it really depends on the faculty person. So I can't really answer that, in one particular, and be very specific about that because it will depend on the faculty. One-page resume is always standard unless, thank you, German, you're a wealth of information. I appreciate that. Thanks for answering the questions. Cool. Any other questions